Hi, welcome back. Today I am here with a recommendations video. I want to recommend to you a few really awesome YA sci-fi books that I have read recently. I read one of these a few months back, but so far in November I have read some really fantastic YA sci-fi. So let's get into it. The first recommendation I want to make to you is one that I'm sure I have talked about in videos before, but it is still one of my favorite YA sci-fi series, and that is going to be Nyxia and Nyxia Unleashed by Scott Rankin. This is going to be a trilogy. Book 3 comes out in 2019, and it is fantastic. I think it's a little bit like Red Rising, but for a YA audience. Not that the story is exactly the same, but it has some similar vibes to it. It also has a really diverse cast of characters that is done incredibly well. Our main character is a Black American kid from Detroit, and he is recruited by this company to go with other teens into space to train in order to take them to a planet where they will mine this mysterious substance known as Nyxia. And so the first book in the series has kind of that training school type feel to it. It does get a little brutal at times, so it's violent, so maybe watch out for your much younger readers, but in general, it's really well done. The diversity is there, the action is there, and then in book 2 I really loved it. It deals with issues of like colonization, but within a really fun, actiony, awesome sci-fi series. So that's my first recommendation to you. I think it is so well done. My next recommendation, I don't know what took me so long to get to this, but early in November I actually read the first 2 books in a YA sci-fi series that started last year, and the first book was actually a debut, a very impressive debut. It is This Mortal Coil by Emily Saveda, and the sequel is This Cruel Design. I really love this. This is going to be your post-apocalyptic sci-fi with a kick-ass female main character who is into STEM. She does genetic coding and is really smart. It has complex female characters, which I love. It's got kind of some anti-hero stuff, and there's real science in here, guys. The author actually has a background and degrees in science, and let me see what it was exactly. She earned a degree in mathematics and then worked as a data scientist prior to becoming an author, and it definitely shows. You can tell that she knows what she's talking about. It feels like a possible future, and I love this, and this is going to go into the next book that I'm going to talk about as well, but I love that we're starting to see this trend of actually getting science into YA sci-fi. Adult sci-fi has had science in it for a long time, but for whatever reason, YA has tended to push much more heavily on the romance relationships and these quasi-sci-fi elements without really getting into the science of it. And not to say this is boring, it's very action-packed, it's very bingeable. I got through it really fast, and I got through the sequel really fast. Also, I just want to say, it is so impressive to me that the sequel stands up so well against the first one, because after such a strong, bingeable debut, it would be really easy to have second book syndrome, and I think she does a really good job of getting around that. So, highly recommend the series, This Mortal Coil. Again, really great. I love it that it's featuring women in STEM, smart women. It does have some romance in it, but it doesn't lean too heavily into it, which I am also kind of a fan of for books like this, where there's life or death situations. I like that the romance is a little bit more peripheral, so definitely go check out this series. And the final book that I want to share with you is an ARC, so this is a little bit early. The book doesn't actually come out until March, but I'm telling you about it now so that you can go add it to your Goodreads, pre-order it, and hopefully if this book does well, we will get a sequel and an entire series, which would be super exciting because it ends on a cliffhanger, and guys, I need to know what happens next. This is The Tesla Legacy by KK Perez, and I think this book is so interesting. It's a little bit of a genre-bending book. It has a lot of sci-fi elements to it with some real science, but it also has some urban fantasy elements, and it's really neatly woven together. So The Tesla Legacy follows a young woman who is a senior in high school who wants to be a scientist. Again, we have women in STEM, which I love. And we also get real physics and science. So our main character, Lucy, is interesting not only because she is a woman who's into science, but also because she has grown up with epilepsy. So I think we get some really great representation of that in here, which is not something that you see all that often in YA. I actually did do an interview with this author recently, and that will come out closer to publication date, probably in January, so sorry, it's going to be a couple months before you see that. But one thing I thought was really interesting that we talked about was that she has a family member who grew up with epilepsy, and so talked to her quite a bit about that sort of experience, and it's a coming-of-age story So as a result, she has these very overprotective parents, but then something happens in Tesla's old New York hotel room, and she has a little bit of a Peter Parker Spider-Man experience where something happens and she starts developing these strange powers linked with electricity and electromagnetism, and she can follow it back to Tesla. And this throws her into this sort of shadowy, mysterious world of these organizations that are based in alchemy, and they have their own sort of designs, and she's suddenly in the middle of it. And it's a coming of age story, it's action-packed. It's another one that I would say is very bingeable. I got through this really quick. The chapters are really short, which makes them easy to read, and it's just the kind of thing that you want more and more of. There's also some romance in here, there's a little bit of a love triangle, and she's balancing all of this crazy supernatural sci-fi stuff with her more regular concerns of having overprotective parents, of planning for prom, of having issues with her best friend. And so it does a really nice job of balancing all these elements, and I loved it. Some of the bits with the alchemy and the secret societies reminds me a little bit of Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code. It's got kind of those similar vibes, and the readable and the bingeable quality of it is like that. But at the same time, you get these tidbits of science and history of science and history of alchemy. And so it's like all of this really educational content kind of slipped in there in between all the really exciting bits in a way that's done really well. So I was a huge fan. I really want to know what happens next. I hope we get more books in the series. So guys, go at it to Goodreads, pre-order it, check it out. I just think this was fantastic. And this arc was actually sent to me by the author. She was like kind enough to send me a copy so that we could do the interview, which again will be coming out in January. I thought that one kind of cool thing to do with this would be to have an arc tour. So I'm opening invitation to any of you in the bookish community. If you have a book blog, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have a bookstagram where you review books, you are welcome to join in, and we're going to send this around. You're welcome to join in. I will create some kind of a spreadsheet or sign-up sheet where you can say that you're interested in it, and we will mail this around so people can read and review it. There aren't that many art copies available at this point, and so I thought this would be a cool way to kind of build some excitement. So let me know, and then if you do video reviews of it, I will link it and promote it. I really love the author. She's writing sci-fi under KK Perez, but she also wrote Sweet Black Waves under Christina Perez, and that is a YA fantasy retelling that is one of my favorite debut novels of the year. So I really like her. I really love her writing. I think she does a lot of cool, interesting things. So if you're interested in being part of an arc tour for the Tesla Legacy, talk to me in the comments down below, or click on the sign-up sheet that I'll have linked, and hopefully we can get some other people excited about it. So yeah, and then maybe what I'll do is have this sent back to me, and if people want to annotate it, they could annotate it, and then maybe we could eventually get it to the author. That might be like a cool thing to do. So anyway, there you have it. Those are some of my recommendations for some really great new YA sci-fi books that have been coming out. I highly recommend you check out all of them. Talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know if you have any recommendations of other great YA sci-fi that people should be checking out. If you've read any of these, if you want to read some of these, I would love to chat with you. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.